United Airlines pilots have not had a new contract for more than 9 years. A week ago, their union launched a publicity campaign called the Unfriendly Skies, telling passengers United is not only unfriendly, but actually unsafe.
It's a possible sign that labor trouble could affect your summer travel. With us now, CBS News travel editor Peter Greenberg. Captain Chesley Sullenberger, our aviation safety expert, is also here. Do you two see this the same, this labor issue?
It's a very difficult issue. It's very frustrating to be in a company where they really won't negotiate with you in good faith, and you go almost a decade without a working agreement.
And in a situation at U.S. Air, Sully's former airline, that's a situation where last year the pilots took out a full-page ad in USA Today, which basically said the airline was operating an unsafe airline. Now, in that situation, the airline actually went to federal court and got an injunction against the union and basically gagged the union. Now we've got the United pilots in a similar situation with not having a contract, basically going back to the same playbook, and now they're leafleting, basically saying the airline is operating an unsafe situation.
Is it unsafe, though? I mean, a lot of people watching at home, what they want to know is, do I have to be worried when I get on that plane that it isn't safe?
You know, the concern is that the leadership isn't creating a good safety culture. And what we end up doing then is relying upon the initiative and the dedication of individual employees to operate at a very high level, even though there are systemic flaws in the way things are managed at the airline.
And one of the big issues that they're bringing up, which, by the way, is not a new issue, as Sully and I both know, is outsourcing. Outsourcing of maintenance and outsourcing to the regional carriers, where there are different rules at play that not necessarily mean you're getting the most experienced pilots flying the plane.
So when you go on a regional airline, you're not achieving the same level of safety that we have at the major airlines. At the regionals, you don't have the same robust safety system in which we operate that you do at the large major airlines. So we still have not, in spite of our best efforts, achieved what we call one level of safety. They're simply not the same.
Can you go from what you just said to this statement? It's less safe to fly today than it has been because of these kinds of issues.
It's actually very safe to fly. But what we need to remember is that you can't define safety solely as the absence of a lot of recent accidents and incidents. Unless you look further beyond the behind the curtain and proactively identify systemic risks and mitigate them, you're not doing what our passengers deserve.
And so that's what the pilots are saying, is they don't feel that the checks and balances are in place there and that the jobs are being outsourced, so they don't feel as confident.
Right. But what they're really doing now is they've crossed the line in a situation. This is akin, this leafleting and what happened last year at U.S. Air is really akin to doctors standing in front of a hospital saying, don't go in there, they're going to kill you. And that's really crossing a line.
And what many people don't realize is that when they buy a ticket on the major airline, over half the scheduled airline flights in this country now are flown on regional carriers, not the major
Increasingly
carriers.
so.
Increasingly so. And it may say the same major airline name on the side of the airplane, but it's in fact operated by an independent third-party company that's often the lowest bidder that's gotten the contract to be the express carrier or connection for that airline.
And you have said that they're not as safe. Now, we should point out United has issued a statement here saying safety is United's highest priority. They say that the union PR campaign is nothing but another negotiating strategy to create leverage in ongoing labor talks.
Well, when you hear that, what do you think? When you hear that kind of statement?
There are real concerns.
A negotiating tactic rather than a genuine concern.
There are real concerns. I cannot speak to the motivation of everyone involved with this pamphlet, but I know that there are real concerns. I've seen it, I've lived it, and there are my colleagues who are still living in flawed safety cultures at major airlines.
And then you just have the union's future at heart as well. For example, in the situation with American and U.S. Air actually went behind everybody's back to the unions at American and said, listen, American is going to announce right now that in their bankruptcy proceedings, they're going to lay off 13,500 employees. If you play in our play plan, we're only going to lay off 6,000. So would you like to get stabbed or shot? And the union basically said, okay, stabbed works for us. So now they're on the side of U.S. Air in their attempt to take over American.
Which is particularly frustrating for the original U.S. Airways employees, because they've been trying to achieve a contract for many years, but the company has had no real incentive to negotiate with them. But because the American pilots have something that the U.S. Airways management wants, they are willing to do in just a few weeks what the U.S. Airways pilots couldn't get done in years.
What will be decisive in the end in these negotiations?
The alignment of goals. When there's something in it for everyone, then there will be a deal.
Well said. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Sully. In our next hour, we'll talk with Captain Sully again, this time about his interesting new book on leadership.